here with my family. It's a real special moment tonight.
Last one for you. WGN TV's lurking on me. I see you, Dan Roan. So when did you know that this group could do what you've done at this point and hopefully 4 more?
I think last year we grew into the winner that you saw, and being able to do what we did last year. And guys continue to work hard in the offseason and all the way through spring training. And it's been our goal to get to this point and win a World Series. And now we're going. We have that chance. So it's a credit to the coaching staff and the front office for spending the money and the ownership. And the whole group will continue to get better and work hard toward this goal. And you don't see a lot of teams that set their goals as high as we do and are able to reach them. So we're on our way there, and we got one more step.
David Ross, this city loves you. You'll never have to buy dinner here. Congratulations.
Thanks for having me.
One of the greatest nights in Cub baseball history. All right, we move on. Let us bring in the conversation with Tim Donaghy. 52 years old now, banned from the NBA, cheated on games, provided information, and he's got a movie out. Here comes the former ref, Tim Donaghy, on the Mark with yours truly, Mark Carman. It is my pleasure to bring in Tim Donaghy, NBA ref from 1994 to 2007. And of course, Tim was involved in the NBA's gambling scandal in the mid-2000s. Tim was providing information to gamblers, ended up getting caught, and has been banned from the NBA. He's now has a movie that is about him called Inside Game, and Tim joining us now. Tim, this movie is going to detail in depth what you did in the NBA, going to perhaps expose you to people who don't know your story. This has to feel super vulnerable. This movie is going to be out there with yourself and your dad and a lot of people you know. How's it feeling for you knowing that people are going to see sort of the inside part of the story in Inside Game?
Obviously, when I was going through the whole situation in 2007, it was very embarrassing, and it is still as embarrassing 10 years later to see it play out in the movie Inside Game. So it's a situation where a lot of poor choices are shown in the movie that I made, but hopefully something positive is going to come from that, and that a lot of people are going to learn from it. So it's an exciting time to see the movie, but in the same sense, it's a little embarrassing.
Tim, where did the muscle come from for you to continue to do these interviews and sort of, I guess, relive it all the time? Because you've been on a ton of radio and you're talking to me today, and we're going to hit some different points in the conversation, hopefully. But this is something that you do all the time, and it can't be easy.
I think that, I don't like to put, any, stop buttons in any interviews that I do. I think if I can, let people know, in an honest way what I did and how I did it, and the transparency, helps, have people forgive you. And, I'm very fortunate that we live in a very, forgiving society, and people have been very nice to me, even though that I really did some dumb things and made some poor choices. So with that being said, I think it's a situation, especially in the movie Inside Game, where you can see that those poor choices not only affected me, but the people that I love the most, and that's my family, and we can all learn from it.
Yeah, so you've got 4 daughters, correct, Tim?
Yes.
So, and how old were they at the time when this was all coming apart in 2007?
Yeah, 13, 14, 7 and 9. So, they were young.
Okay. And what was the conversation that you were having with your family at the time?
Basically that I made some poor choices. I made some mistakes, and I was going to have to pay for that. And I was going to have to pay for it by losing my job, and not only losing my job, going away for a 15-month jail sentence. So, my kids were very understanding, very forgiving. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to rebuild my life with the help of family and friends, and my youngest daughter has been living with me full-time for the last 8 years.
Oh, wow. I would think, though, that, I don't know, if I was your kid, Tim, I'd be like, Dad, why did you do that? Why are you leaving me? I mean, were you having those kind of conversations?
For sure, and it was extremely difficult. I remember when I was in prison and my daughters came for a visit, and when it was time to leave, the youngest one ran, jumped up in my arms, and gave me the biggest, strongest hug and told me that she wasn't going to leave, that she was going to stay there with me.
Oh my God.
So, it was definitely heart-wrenching at the time. And even when I think back about that day, it gets me a little emotional.
Yeah. Well, time heals all wounds, so to speak, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let me bring up the name Jimmy Batista. How much of you meeting Jimmy, not that you're putting it on him or anyone in particular, you make your own choices in life, I think everybody knows that, but how much did that friendship end up impacting your life in a negative way?
Well, he wasn't really a friend. He was an associate of the Gambino crime family that happened to go to the same high school with me. My friend was Tommy Martino, who knew him also. He kind of tricked Tommy into setting up a meeting between the three of us. And with that being said, he was the guy that was moving a lot of money. He was a guy that was in debt to a lot of people. He was betting hundreds of thousands of dollars on each one of these plays and giving information to the Gambino crime family. And eventually it was heard over a Gambino wiretap, and that's how the whole thing was exposed.
Right. So, and then, okay, they get word, you're on tape. What went down when they approached you?
The FBI agents?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened was Tommy had called me and said the FBI had been at his house for 3 days asking him questions. And, with that being said, I went to an attorney because I knew it was about me. In the next 30 days, I lost 30 pounds. I couldn't eat or drink anything. And the stress was just enormous on my life. I knew I was in a lot of trouble. I had an attorney call the United States attorney that was working the case, and he basically said, you tell Tim Donaghy, I know what you did. I know who you did it with. You're going to lose your job, but if you don't come to us and work with us, not only are you going to lose your job, but you're going to go to jail for a long, long time. And with that threat, I got on the plane the next day and went to New York and sat down with the FBI agents and told them what I did and how I did it.
And you maintain to this day, Tim, and I believe you, by the way, for the record here, but you maintain you did not fix games. You just had access to information. Is that correct?
Yes, and even the FBI and the NBA concluded that I didn't go out and fix games. And what I mean by that is putting stars to the bench and making up fouls to make sure a bet won. The only thing I did was within the scope of the rule book. I may have targeted certain players with that crew that night and, called violations on them. Maybe were let go in previous games. But for whatever reason, we were going to enforce them strictly that night because maybe of a vendetta between a referee and a player that we were going to enforce.
So you and your fellow officials would go out before the game and be like, if X player, I don't know who we're talking about here, Tim Duncan, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, if he does this particular move, we're going to call it. Is that how those conversations would go?
Yes, there was Allen Iverson who had threatened Steve Javie the game before, and we all felt at the staff that he should have been suspended, and he was only fined $20,000. I had the next game, and the two officials I was working with and myself decided that we were going to go out and call palming violations on him, even though he got away with that, his whole career. And we went out in the first half, called 3 palming violations on him, and he came up to me and said, hey, Tim, how long is this going to last for? And I basically told him, I don't know what you're talking about, Alan. And he laughed and looked at me and he said, you know what I'm talking about. And I kind of laughed back at him. So it was just a matter of time that he was going to be scrutinized because of the fact that he had threatened to kill one of our coworkers.
And who did he threaten again?
He threatened Steve Javie, who was one of the top officials at the time. Right.
And why was he threatening Steve Javie?
Because Javie just had an ongoing battle with him every time he officiated him. So Allen had enough, and I think Steve was, giving him technical fouls or throwing him out of the game. And as he was walking off the court, he told him that, he was going to kill him. And basically, it was something that we felt that he should have been suspended for, and he was only fined. So why doesn't the league's got to know that this is going on? Why do they not get involved with you guys, the referees, or with the players? Joey Crawford had a long-time thing going on with Tim Duncan and the Spurs, and yet he would pop up and he'd be refereeing a Spur game. Like, that never added up to me. No, and I think now that they really make sure that the animosity between referees and players either gets settled or the referees are held, off of their games. In the past, there were only 58 referees, so you would see the same team, maybe once, twice, 3 times a week, or even, couple times more that month. But now they have so many referees, they kind of don't allow the referees to see the same teams as often as they did in the past.
Okay. All right, let me rewind back here. I want to ask a couple more questions on Jimmy Batista, who I was watching one of his videos, and he said that based on your information, you guys would have a code word, I guess it was schmaga, which he would up your pay if you gave him some like really hot information where you were super confident about a game. Is that accurate?
Yes, Joey, we nicknamed him Schmaga, was a handicapped child that lived in the neighborhood of the Martinos that we always took out to lunch and really was a part of all our families 20-some years. So that was the words we used if the play was just, so good that he needed to bet everything he could on it. And we would just call it a Schmaga.
Tim, can you give me an example of a Schmaga game?
One time I was in Washington, and Mike Fratello was coaching the Memphis Grizzlies, and he was coming in for that game, and one of the team personnel saw him as he was getting off the bus, and Mike Fratello told him that he was sitting 4 of his 5 starters and basically was going to be a throw-in game for them, the rest, and I knew Washington was going to win and win big, so I called up Tommy Martino and told him that, it's a schmager. Washington's going to win and cover, and they're going to win by 20 or 30 points. And with not explaining to him why, he passed that information along to Batista, and they were able to capitalize on it.
It came in, huh? That was a winner?
Absolutely. We wanted a 85% clip. There was very few times where we had problems that we had a bet that lost.
And you would get, what, $5,000 for a regular game and a schmaga? Is that right? You get $200 and some odd $1,000?
No, I got $2,000 per correct play. The money was always a problem. I just wanted to be done with Batista. There was a lot of times where Tommy and I didn't even get paid because he was on drugs and he was doing online poker and he was losing millions of dollars doing things that he shouldn't have been doing. So the money really never came flowing back to us like it was supposed to. Interesting.
So did you have to pay back dough as well, Tim?
I had to pay back $30,000 to the government, which was the $30,000 that Tommy Martino had given me from the scheme.
Okay. Did you benefit financially overall, would you say?
I benefited, the $30,000, and that's why I had to pay it back. And I think that was in a period of 3 months.
Okay. When you look back on it, Tim, how do you think you fell into this?
Just by making poor choices, hanging out with the wrong people, and crossing lines that I should not have even been near. It really, in the movie Inside Game, that's what really comes out the most is, how we really screwed up and made some poor choices, but because we had such strong families and parents and brothers and sisters, we were able to get through it and then had our family stand by us.
Yeah. I'm just playing amateur psychologist here. I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, you've got this great position in life. You're an NBA referee, nearly impossible to get to. Here you are. You're refereeing Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. You got to be loving your life, you would think. But there's got to be maybe either some belief that you're either A, invincible, or B, it's still not even good enough. Like I need to impress people by driving an even fancier car. I'm trying to understand that part of it.
Oh, no doubt about it. A little bit of greed, a little bit of, thinking that you're invincible, as you said, and going out and just making poor decision after poor decision. You're on the top of the world. You have a great job making more money than you ever dreamed of. So I tossed that all away because of, my addiction to gambling and my need for that, juice of adrenaline from the gambling.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's almost the excitement of it, right? It's not even the money. It's more like the thrill of getting away with it. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely just I got that high from gambling, and whether it was on the golf course in Atlantic City or betting on NBA games, and it just started to consume my life.
Yeah. 772 regular season games. You ref 20 in the playoffs. What do you miss about it the most?
Being on the floor in front of 20,000 people, running up and down the court with the greatest athletes in the world. So, you're right there with all the stars, and I watched on TV, and I think to myself that should be me, and it's not. So it's difficult from time to time to really watch a game.
Yeah. How do you coach yourself to get through it? I mean, outside of I mean, that's probably what I would do. I don't know how much I could actually watch, but when you are watching, like, how do you sort of tell yourself, like, you know what, hey, this is my life right now, and you can't walk around with this because it's going to eat you up?
Right, and